Hello there. Welcome to this YouTube Live. How are you? We're talking about the problem with the all or nothing mentality. This was meant to be a different topic. We were supposed to talk about the path of least resistance and whether that is your path to your dream life. But actually, this is related, but it's just more direct to the point. The all or nothing mentality. Have you ever heard of that? Where you're like, I want to do something, but I can't do it yet because I'm still in this and I'm still in that and I haven't got that yet. But I will do it once it's all there. That's one scenario. Second scenario is like you're in it and then you go through like a dip. Let's say this might be a new business that you're building, or you're just creating a side hustle or something, and everything's up, right? Because you're like excitement, 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 excitement. And then you start going like this, and then there's a little dip like that. And then in that dip, you actually start to feel like you're failing, or you start to feel like, oh no, it's not working, it's not working, it's not working. And you're down here. And then you think because you're down here that it's time to quit. You've gone from here and you go down here and you're like, it's over now. And then that's when you stop what it is that you're doing. Well, there's something that I discovered over the last few years about all or nothing. And it's exactly about that. It happens before you create what it is that you want to create, whether that might be your dream business, your dream life, and you're like putting it on pause because you're like, I'm an all in kind of person and I can't do partial, and because of that, like that creates a barrier. Or you're already in it and you've already started building, or you're in the phase that you feel like you're in a dip and you think that that dip means that it's over. And because it's not going so well as it was before, it kind of makes you feel like, well, I'm not in, let me just quit. And we forget about the time, we forget about the opportunity to rest. We forget the opportunity that is available to somewhat still be in it without being in it in the way that we define all in. So there's like this impression that being all in means that you're always in it, whatever it is that you're building, and you invest everything that you've got or nothing at all. But there's very much a way that you can be all in on your dreams, on your life, in your business, in a way that's sustainable. And that's kind of by redefining what it means to be all in. So I really wanted to explore what that looks like for everyone, because I think when I first started, I used to consider myself as an all in or nothing kind of person. And I think in some ways I kind of do. No, in many ways, in all ways, I consider that I am. I just had to reframe the way that I considered what that even means. And there have been times in my business and wherever it is that I'm going that, I was in one direction and then I kind of like pivoted and then I pivoted. And at those times, I kind of felt like I was failing. I kind of felt like I was, jack of all trades, master of none, lacking focus. And at some points, I really thought that I wasn't giving my business all that I could because I was adding services, subtracting services, da 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 da. And then I would just think in my head, like, that's it. I failed, like I'm not doing this anymore. Forgetting that I'm still in it. It's just that in my mind, I was like, it was a different service. So just to paint a picture of what this looks like in a life, I was having a chat with someone a couple years ago, and this person is in a great career, a professional career that takes a long time to get to, and his passion was photography. And he would chat with me just saying that I really want to get into photography, but the problem with me is that I'm an all-in kind of person and I can't just go partial in. And when I do something, I've got to do it really well from the get-go. I can't just be like a beginner. But the challenge with that is a lot of the time when we had the conversations, this person would always still be in the wishing mode. I mean, I wish I could, but I can't. And we kind of got to remember that we have the power to make our own choices. We have the power to build our life. And there's so much behind what we think matters, which is like, sometimes when you're on the precipice of doing something really great for yourself, for your life, there's some common key barriers that I've come across. The all in or nothing barrier, The second one is like, what are my friends going to think about me? What if, even more so, what if I do it and then I'm not good at it? And then what are people going to think about me then? And I'm going to do it and I'm just going to be a beginner. And especially as adults, when as adults, we kind of, you get to a point in your life where you're used to being very comfortable with what you're doing. You're the expert. People come to you for advice. And then all of a sudden you get to this point where you're like, I want to explore something else, but I'm going to be a beginner. And on some levels, we kind of like our ego takes a little bit of a hit. And then there's a lot of discomfort in being that beginner sort of state. So anyway, when I was having that conversation with that person who loves photography but doesn't want to do it because it's either all or nothing. He could either be in law or finance and never like really have time for his passion for photography and turn that into something, or he was going to have to drop his law or finance job and just go all photography. And that kind of mentality was inhibiting him from making any moves. Like, do you ever feel that kind of thing where you want to move, but again, you kind of feel like locked, but the only person that's locked you into your situation is the way that you're seeing something. So anyway, that got me thinking about my own situation. And I thought to myself, where am I thinking this way? Where am I, where is this all or nothing mentality really affecting me? And again, I actually thought, I was like, dude, like write in your business. Because I was like, oh, I can't keep being in business because I'm like subtracting a service and adding a new one. So that's not really me. And I was just like living in the thick of my thoughts and nothing was really, to me, it was real. But now that I'm like years outside of it, I'm like, it was all in my mind. Like there was nothing about it that was real. Because what happened around those times would be I would take a couple months taking a step back just to have a look at how everything was going, not just the business of it. It's never just the money of it, to be honest. I think it gets to the point where you're building something and it definitely goes beyond the money of it. It starts to, you start questioning like what reason am I here for? Why am I here? And does this even matter? Because at the beginning you get into business and you think it's just about money to create financial freedom so that you can manage your own time. But then when it goes beyond that, when you start questioning why, and then you're actually going, well, how long for? You find yourself back in the spot. When you got a job and you're like, well, how long am I going to stay here until I'm over it? And you kind of like, well, I would like it to be sooner rather than later. And then when you start discovering that you're doing that to the business that you've built for yourself, then it starts to become a little bit tricky. And so that's exactly what I was doing. So when I first built, because one of the very first things that I started, like that was a business, was like, hey, Phil, good to see you. I was 30 minutes late. I just came from a coaching call. It's been back to back today. So, but we're here now. So the topic is all or nothing and the problem with that mentality. I feel like that's quite a bold sort of wording, because the problem with that. But it's just more so that I just remember having that chat with that photographer who had this great career. And it just really highlighted a couple of things. Like you can have a great career and still feel unfulfilled and feel like your passion is well out of your reach because you're thinking, well, it's got to be something. I've got to make something of it and I've got to be really good at it right away. And then when I took that, so I was already thinking about this person, but then I was like, stop thinking about that person. His business is not your business. Or like, why is this affecting you? That's what I asked myself. Like, why are you thinking about it, And so all or nothing, That's right. And then I started thinking about myself and I was like, that's very much how I feel about my business. That's why I was quite attached to those conversations, is because every time I felt like I wasn't on the money, like not just the money, but like when I wasn't on track to knowing exactly where I wanted the business to go and what it is that I was doing, I felt like, oh, I got to step out. I got to stop this. I got to give up. And then I got to start again. And the idea of starting again was even worse because I'm like, God, now I got to start again. What's that going to look like? And just all these thoughts going over. And then when I reframed it and I was like, maybe it's not that. And this is so interesting because this is all about perception, the perception of what your rules are for yourself, the perception of how you're going to approach something. I guess there's a lot of things that can, what am I trying to say? You can basically do what you want. And I think the impression of all or nothing, we think that if we give something our all today and tomorrow and for the next 12 months, then that thing that we're building is going to get to where we want it in the next 12 months. But really, something, I think when you realize that you're building something that's meaningful to you and like really meaningful to you, then that time frame of like 12 months actually starts to dissipate and the timeline starts to disappear. And then you finally realize that you're able to give yourself some space to just be in that journey. I think sometimes we forget that, and often forget that it's a journey. It's corny to say, but we think that there's going to be an end line. Like, when I get to this point, then I'm all in. Or when I get to this point, then I'm successful. When I get to this point, I'm happy. And I'm even guilty of that, like it's interesting putting these concepts together with like real world life experiences, and you're setting, okay, these are some goals, and you're thinking, okay, these are the steps that we're going to do to get to those goals, and we're going to be all in. And sometimes you take a little pivot and you kind of feel like maybe you're not all in. So take the risk, even in fear. Do it anyway. Live once. Must take advantage of the opportunity to jump at the chance. I think so too. And I think we kind of got to avoid the overthinking about it. There's this illusion sometimes, I don't know about you, but do you ever experience that you're thinking about something over and over again, so much so that you actually convince yourself that you've done something about it, but nothing's been done about it. You've just thought about it at different levels. Now, this is great in two ways, because one, when you start thinking about something and it starts to become, the thought of that starts to become normal to you, and it's related to what it is that you want to do or your next step in life, it's almost like you're manifesting what it is that you want, right? Because it's thoughts, starts off with thoughts, and then you start talking about it, and then you start doing about it. So, but then the other thing that can happen is you just think about it so much that you have the illusion that you've done something about it, when in fact you've only thought about it at great depths, and it's still kind of waiting to happen. And I talked about this in one of the previous live sessions, where it's about creating momentum sometimes. So I think like removing any labels or expectations as to how we should approach something, that's not really, from the way that I see it, the only purpose that has for ourselves is for ourselves to understand how committed we are to doing something. So when you say to yourself that I'm an all or nothing kind of person, the first thing that you have to identify is, what does all even mean to me? Like, to be an all in kind of person can mean that I'm going to write a book over the next 12 years, and I'm going to write, I'm going to write like one chapter every quarter of the year. For me, that might mean I'm all in, but to some people that kind of commitment might be like, oh, you're not in at all, like you're just dabbling, like why don't you focus some more? You know what I mean? So the very first thing would be like to identify, what does all mean to you? And if that's the case, like, how does that impact the timeline that you set for yourself? The tricky thing about social media is that our peers, our competition, our community, they're all in front of our eyes, right? Like, you can see it right away. And the moment that you see someone doing something in your industry and they're doing really, really well, that automatically, it's almost like an automatic reaction for us that we benchmark our success based on what we see, which is it's hard to live like that, I guess. And it's hard, but it's also almost natural. So what do you do about it? And to be honest with you, I used to feel like that, especially at the beginning, because once I started building my business, I started being surrounded by other people in business. And the way that things went for me was, at first I hopped in like really naive. I knew nothing. I knew no one, and I was very naive. So I didn't know how to benchmark. I was just in it for my own personal journey. But then the more progress I made for myself, and the more I started to understand what things are and how things work, then whenever I started seeing my peers or anyone who was doing better than I started benchmarking myself, and their standard became my standard, which was so um, like rough to live by because you're creating your own standards based on someone else's actions. And so this all comes into one picture, right? So it's like all or nothing, being in it, in my definition of all. And then the other thing is really starting to understand that that person's journey is so different from mine, not just based on our timeline, not just based on their experience versus my experience, but I also had to start realizing that it has a lot to do with values, your personal values, my personal values versus, it wasn't actually versus anyone's values, but I had to start seeing that when you benchmark yourself against other people in your industry or other people who are doing the same thing as you or other people who are achieving things that you want to achieve, when you benchmark your success based on where they are today, then you're really saying that you're not saying anything. You're negating a lot of the other things that really paint a picture of who you really are, right? So when you're benchmarking yourself on someone else's income, on someone else's achievements, like what they've built, the size of the team that they've built, the size of the business that they've built, the career path that they've taken, you're really negating a lot of other things that aren't on the table, because no one's saying this business made this much money, the size of their team is like this, and this is the kind of business they've really grown to. And by the way, this person's background is like this is how they were raised, and this is what they value, and what they think is a good use of their time is like this. Like no one ever gives those like little extra dot points, right? We're just looking at the final results and saying, well, why am I like that? Or especially with social media. So a lot of people who want to grow a following on social media, and then you start seeing your peers and they've got this many followers, this many subscribers, and you're going, well, me too, I want that too. Like, why isn't that happening to me? And we forget all of those other things, all of those other subcategories which drive the way we behave, which drive the things that we actually value. To a lot of people, vanity metrics don't even really matter, but because society places this huge importance on vanity metrics. Hey, Karen, nice to see you. So we're talking about the all or nothing mentality and the problem that can arise when that is the mentality. But right now, I was just saying how it can be tricky when, in social media, you have your peer group. Oh my gosh, Marketa, how are you, girl? And we're talking about, when you benchmark your own success versus what you see, and seeing our peers in our community is very accessible to us thanks to social media, and especially so when publicizing your results is actually part of PR. Like in so many ways, like when you publicize your results and say, this is what we've achieved, oh, we're celebrating this, I'm so excited. We like maybe in competition or in community kind of look at that and start internalizing and say, oh, they're so fast, they're so fast in their growth. And yet we forget a lot of the other sub factors that build that up, like their values and their background and how long they've been doing something for, or, and for me, values is a huge thing. Right. So, like, if you're building a business or you're building a brand, and then you've got someone else who's doing the same thing as you, and you're seeing them all the time, and you're benchmarking yourself based on their results, it's easy to forget, like, for me, I personally value balance. I like my day to be filled with a variety of different things. And so at the beginning, my personal challenge was I would see other people in my industry just grow so fast. And I would question myself and be like, why? What am I doing wrong? Like, do I just not follow the steps very well? Am I just not listening? Am I hard-headed? Am I not as skilled? Maybe I'm not that good. And this kind of mentality, first year in business, second year in business, it's you don't notice it, it's almost just you're living in reaction. Then after the third year in business, you start to realize, oh, I'm in reaction. I'm reacting to what I'm seeing. But if you don't choose to do anything about it, what goes from like, oh, this is tiring, it starts to become exhausting, and then it starts to drive the way that you are. And that's what made me sort of like really look into my approach. And I said, okay, let's take away everything else that's on the forefront. Like, what do I care about? And I thought, I really care about having, I like balance. I like, and this is not even considering what balance looks like to anyone else, because let's remember, we're all in our own lives. Like, what is balance to me? And what do I enjoy in a day? There's only one of me. And what else do I know about myself? I'm like, I understand, I know how to outsource, I know how to work with a team. And my discomfort section, or my discomfort level, is when I'm about to hire a team and be like, okay, how long are we in contract for? Or is this going to be full employment? That's my thing. And then that started making me see, like, okay, where can we, in terms of growth, where can we work on these things in a manner that is, yes, I understand, is uncomfortable, but still at a level where I'm still in it. I'm still in the game. I'm not like I'm all or nothing. It's like, get in, get out. And so I don't know if this is making sense or if this is flowing, because in my mind I feel like I'm going left, right, and center. But it's more so bringing all back to the original thing about this, which is like being able to approach your growth in a place where you can take steps, like baby steps count. And the thing is, your definition of baby steps is your definition of baby steps. Maybe in your mind you feel as though you're doing baby steps, but really to someone else, they're looking at you and they're like, they're just taking gigantic steps. They're always doing really big things. So let's do some catching up. Karen, you're doing your YouTube homework. Yes, girl, that's you're making me very happy. um, and Phil says, yes, it can be tricky and pressure arise, trying to impress by fitting, by showing off, flashing money or expensive cars to feel important and value. People can still do like, be who you are organically in business, or creating fresh ideas, a plan with balance, substance to bring to the table to gain wealth of success, and having team to support to get it done. Such a good point, always about your choice, about how much time we devote to something. If we give something an hour a day, we can't compare ourselves. Hey, Kimberly Hills, against someone who works on the pro. And that's right. You know what's interesting as well? So thinking about the quantity of time that we spend in building something that we want to build, right? I used to quantify effort based on if I had really long days, like 16-hour days, I'm working so much, 16-hour days, 17-hour days. And it was just like that until I started to really internalize or understand that 80% of our results are caused by only 20% of our action. When I first heard that, I thought, yeah, okay, I got it. But then when I heard it again, 80% of our results are caused by only 20% of our action. So then I started looking at my day and like, all right, so where's 100% of my energy? What am I doing? And so I started tracking, right? I started tracking like my activities. And then I found that I was doing a lot of activities that was making me busy and making me, taking energy, but weren't actually contributing to my 80% of results. Right. So then I experimented and I thought, let me just, if I put that on the back burner, or what if I just stop that altogether? What's going to happen? And I started doing this with every task that I found that I was doing that was making me busy, but not actually contributing to results. And it was to my surprise, and I don't know why I was surprised, maybe because maybe I'm conditioned. Maybe I conditioned myself to believe that I should be working all the time. If you have your business, because that's all I see. You got to work all the time, da 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 da. And I started to believe that. So I made myself do that. But then when I stripped back all of this activity, I started to realize I'm actually getting better results because I have more energy to do the things that matter. And so again, my definition of all or nothing like transformed, because at this stage, putting all in on my business didn't actually mean being busy all the time and working 16, 17-hour days because that's what makes sense. It actually meant to me multiplying what was working. So doing more of what was working and preserving my energy from activities that weren't directly there. And can I make a confession? Hair growth girl, you can't work all the time. You need to leave some space for mental breakdowns. Yes. Well, I was having lots of those, especially in that bathroom downstairs. I didn't know where to go. I just go to the bathroom and sob. That's literally guys, if anyone, by the way, like knows anyone who needs health, like natural health care remedies, like people with alopecia or um, hair growth girl has studied this for a very long time. And so she started a channel all about that. Um, and so, yeah, so I started multiplying the activities that were making sense for my business to grow and then decreasing activities which weren't making a huge impact. And I mean, I'll be honest with you, there was a bit of conflict, internal conflict. There was internal conflict because some of these activities that were making me busy were actually my passion. So interesting when you build a business stemming from your passion, you start to blur the boundaries. You start to blur the lines of am I working or am I in my passion, and until it becomes one one big ball of just activity and you don't really know what's contributing anymore. So I took a step back and I was like, how would like 2.0 version of myself be doing this? And so when that came around, when that came around, um, it was very felt strange. It felt strange to have more time on my hands. And when I say strange, I'll say that it even made I felt a bit guilty. I felt guilty, like how could things it's so funny, hey. Things started working better and then there was part of me that was like, how can things be working better when I'm actually exerting less effort? I didn't want to resist it. I wanted to just sit in that discomfort. So when I discovered that there was a lot of discomfort in what was going on, I said, right, well, this must be really new for you. Like, it must be new for you to get better results and not be like bloody dying. you know, um, Hair growth girl and I were just talking about how you can be in your passion and because you really enjoy the process of building your business, but you can suffer through it as well. And that's what I went through, like for a few years of just building and suffering at the same time. No, there was no clear definition between the two. And so when I discovered that, oh, koi, have you heard of Paradigm? I linked you. Yes. You know what, Koi? You've been on my mind this whole freaking time because I read your comment and I wanted to give you a thorough reply. And instead of doing that, I watched the video and I was like, how would I say this in my words? But yeah, I actually mentioned you in the last live video last week, talking about paradigms and shifting paradigms to change, to shift your reality. So yes, that video that you tagged me, that you linked, is on the money because paradigms are, yeah, it's like thoughts that were built from when you were a child and they became your operating system, they became your belief system and that sort of thing. So, yeah. So yeah, when I found that I was in this place where, okay, things are working and I'm like, I know I'm working less, I'm doing more of what I choose to do, not the things that I have to do. I didn't want to resist it. So I was like, I want to welcome myself into this new place. What does that look like? And I was like, babe, you got to do nothing. This is the new reality for yourself. Like, this was your dream, right? Like everyone in business, I know, like not everyone. I know a lot of people go into business because we love it. We love the process, but like there's a good portion of people I say, why you start your business? And they're like, I wanted to create financial freedom for myself and I wanted to create more time. And then you go into your business only to discover that it's actually going to take you more time. And at the beginning, for me, I was making less money. So when I started, I was like, this is the actual opposite of what they say it's going to be when you start a business. No, I didn't think that, but I realized that, because what's sold on the front is like, yeah, chase your dreams, da da da. And I really love that. I actually can't think of any other way to do things because that's how I am. But then, hang on, where was I going with that? I was going somewhere with that. Oh, Oh, yeah, that's right. So when things started to work well, I wasn't used to not working as much as I used to. And instead of my tendency was like, okay, we'll do more then. Do more, go in there. I actually even did some Instagram stories. Oh my God. I even did some Instagram stories because I had a bright idea and I was like, let's do that. And I've got this sign on my wall and it says, um, aim to direct the general direction of your reality and course correct. So I have to ask myself, am I course correcting? Like, is the action that I'm about to do about to head in the direction that I want? Or am I deviating for some reason? And often these deviations are a result of, I don't think I can get there that fast. So let me just pivot over here. Let me add, like, let's say this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps. But because I think in my brain that I'm not ready for step 3 or step 4, or I'm not there yet, I'm like, well, let me just add step 1.A, 1.B, 1.C, and you just start adding these things. And then when I start looking at it, I'm like, right, well, I guess this is a deviation. Let's go back and course correct. And what did that mean about these deviations? That means that I just let them go. I'm like, just let them go. And when I let them go, I'm like, oh, I'm here and I have more energy and I have more time and I'm still on course. So this is still quite new to me. Being on course is quite new without being like ridiculously no time for any other things. So, right, when to switch from hustler mindset to the owner mindset. Yeah. And I'm very much still in the manifesting what that looks like for myself at the moment. And I've been saying this in the last few lives where I'm like, what does future Kristine look like? I'm like, she's so chill. She's so chill. She's so zen. And so, in order to manifest, we always talk about manifestations, like how do you manifest certain things? And it's like, sorry, it's about being. It's about being, not wanting. It's about having now, not wishing to have it. And so what I've decided is, instead of waiting for the time to be less busy, instead of waiting for the time to have the future results, I'm in this place of kind of sitting in that. And it's still kind of strange, to be honest. So if anyone here has gone beyond this, please tell me. Share with me, what does that look like moving forward? What do you do with this spare time? um, so that's pretty much it. It's a learning to do one thing, you know what I mean? Like, just embodying that, just embodying the 80-20 perception, 80% of results, 20% of action. Like that in itself for me is like a daily practice. Being all or nothing, that's what it looks like now. It might mean, instead of doing like 16 hours of work back then, and now it might be like 6.5 hours of work. There's a big difference of what that looks like in your physical life. 6.5 hours of concentrated work that's directed directly to results versus 16 hours of work, but really only 6.5%. I don't know. My math is bad, but I don't know what else to really say about this. I guess the only last thing that I want to say is, when we last talked about the original video today was about taking the path of least resistance, and is that your easiest quantum leap way to your life of success? It's kind of related. Let me backtrack a little bit. I think we're conditioned to think that life should be hard. And I think that we're conditioned to think that work life should really be what it was like when it first started in the industrial era, like the 9 to 5, the got to be in an office that whole time because otherwise you don't deserve the pay that you get for your job. Or if you're in a high level, like in a profession where it's like, in that profession, it's known that you put in, you know, 17 hours a day. And if you put in any less, then you're not in the right place. Two things. A lot of the time when you're on the path of least resistance, it's actually so much easier. Work doesn't take that much time, first of all, nor does it take the same amount of energy because you're living within your nature. And I think I've spoken to you guys privately about this kind of thing. Hair growth girl, wink. There are just some things that are really natural to us. For me, doing these lives every Friday I love it so much because guess what, you guys? When I'm not working, coaching, consulting, learning about social media, which is, I do that as part of a function of my job and what I've built, and to be able to fulfill the things for the people that I work with in order for them to succeed. When I'm not doing that, I'm like, all I do is listen to mindset and spirituality. Mindset, spirituality. Why? At the beginning, it was the thing that I needed for myself to actually get and understand what it was going to take for me to get the things that I wanted in my life, right? I needed to understand what was going on in my mind, in my heart, in my spirit that was impacting my results. The two things stayed consistent: social media, mindset. And those two things I can speak about very freely. But this, I feel I do it simply because I want to. And I built the business that I did simply because I want to. And I say this I've been on live now. I realized I counted back my videos. I was like, it's been 3 months now. It's been 3 months of every Friday showing up. And I kind of just wanted to explore what it would be like to talk about these kinds of things. And at first, my very first live, I was like 20 minutes because I was like so nervous. I was like, I'm not ready to talk about this. I'm not in the place. I'm not an expert. I'm just a person who's been through my own personal journey, and I really love the concepts. And I feel like sometimes there were some concepts that I wanted to get, but I couldn't understand the language. And so I thought, I wonder what it would be like to bridge that gap. Because I think like when we look at the personal development space, we have this impression of what it looks like. And we're like, personal development is so full on. But then there was part of me that said, well, surely personal growth can also be, yes, it can be uncomfortable. Not it can be, it will be. There's going to be parts where it's going to be uncomfortable. But where's the part where we can kind of like buckle up, like buckle up and enjoy the ride? We're going on a road trip. And that's the approach that I really wanted to explore. And so honestly, when I knew that work was going to get busier, I could feel it. I could feel I was in the right direction. And when you just feel like you're in the right place, this was, again, new to me. Towards the end of last year, winding down, coming into 2021, I was like, this is the right place. And I was like, ooh, oh, scary. It was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah, I'm sure. And I was like, all right. Well, you're going to be busier. And P.S., by the way, you're known to be a vlogger. What are you going to do about that? I was like, you could either hire a team, your creative team. I've worked with teams before. They do the editing. They keep us in business. And I was like, or you just do some live. Because YouTube was the one thing I kept on loving it no matter what. From the beginning, like YouTube was the launch pad. YouTube was the launch pad of everything that's happened thus far and became the direction of my career. So it was the beginning, middle, and current. I don't want to say end because we're still here. But so I was like, I still want to be on YouTube, but I just don't know how right now because I have a feeling I'm going to have to focus on something else. And I was like, or you can hire a team and that's going to work and and you can keep showing up and you're perfect. My vlogs, my edited vlogs, keep showing up that way. Or why don't you just use this time to talk about the thing that you love the most and that's very natural to you? And I was like, well, I don't even know if I can really talk about it because I don't know how to verbalize some of the concepts. So I decided, well, my channel stats were going here, there, and everywhere anyway. So I was like, what do you have to lose? What do you have to lose? So then I started. And then I think by the third or fourth, I think it was the fourth live, I started to see some people pop in and I was like, oh, I'm not alone. Other people like this topic too. And I stayed. And then it kept on going. And now it's just this thing. And just the other week, I was like, well, you've been here now for 3 months. So what are you going to do about it? I was like, well, we've got a nice little community. And I think we enjoy it. So I'm just going to catch up on some chats. Some people are busy all the time because they are terrified to be with themselves. Oh my gosh. Tell me about it. I'm like, have all the thoughts and I didn't even come out. Let's talk about 2-week quarantine. I've been doing some meditations, only 10 to 20 minutes per morning. And I can see why it can be challenging to just be with yourselves and sit with the discomfort of the thoughts that happen in your mind. And also Not just that, to sit with the thoughts and not judge yourself and think that something is missing, something is wrong. Because normally that's what, when we sit with our thoughts, everything comes up, the good, the things that we could do better. And imagine sitting with just that. Um, so go where the energy flows. Yes, you don't get the credit that you truly deserve. It becomes your life through by being wake up the next day and do it all over again. Kimberly Hills, 1111. Exactly. Um, I love your live streams. Platonic Sage, welcome. It's good to see you today. I'm definitely stagnant in my flight attendant job, but it's a safe place for me. It's all I've done. Koi, I'm so glad that you mentioned that because the last live stream, I don't know if you were you there? Probably not because I talked about paradigms, but it was about motivation because someone asked about motivation. They're like, how do you stay motivated? And I was just saying that I used to think that getting what you want in life is based on manipulating your motivation, right? Like understanding how to generate it and how to move from there. But actually, what I realized over time is that motivation, once you accept that motivation is fleeting, it's a fleeting state, it's a fleeting human state, then it's a time that you can really start to understand that if you want something, you have to create new habits. You have to take one step and create momentum in the direction that you want to go. And oh, you were flying. Where did you go? Is there I'm super interested, Koi, in your journey because I understand, when you're a flight attendant, you have so many benefits in life. Even to this day, with travel being so sort of up and down, you still get to see parts, you still have that benefit of seeing other places that other people sort of don't. But if there's anything there, and I suggest this for anyone who's still got in a position where you have your income and you have the opportunity to start looking, because one thing that you have went through employment is opportunity to sort of play and experiment, sort of think, okay, what do I like? And if there was one thing that I could build for myself, for the world, or not even for the world, it could be purely yours. Like a lot of the time we all start our business purely, it's like self-indulgent, it's for ourselves, right? But and you kind of think, well, what's the first thing that I need for that? So last week we talked about, it was mentioned that someone was interested in starting an online business. And that was me. You know what that reminded me of? That reminded me of the time that no one wanted to hire me. And the only company that wanted to hire me at the time was an airline in the call center. And in that call center, we only waited for inbound calls. It was a new department for a premium frequent flyer. No one was calling in. And so I used that time to look everything up on the internet. I never heard of these online things, but there was like drop shipping, there was like e-commerce, and I was like reading words that I didn't even understand. I didn't understand what those words were. And I just kept on reading. I was like, there's something to this. And because remember, I came from like travel industry and I wanted to get back into travel industry. So I would type in certain words like travel jobs, get paid to travel. And then came this understanding about digital nomads. What are digital nomads? Oh, they're people who have businesses online or can work from anywhere and they can be anywhere. So automatically that click, I was like, right, I'm in this space. I need to look for something that's digital nomad. And so what was happening was I had that job where I was comfortable in. And for so many reasons, I mean, it was the airline industry, plus it was a job that I just knew the industry. So it was one thing that I was comfortable with. And I didn't have, I had to do things, but I still had some time. Like I remember at the time I was catching the train to my job, catching the train back, and just trying to absorb everything that I could that resonated with me. So by this stage, I hadn't made a decision yet. And even like realistically, when I started my business, I was making decisions and from there reassessing. So the challenge that I had was that I was personally heavily attached to my results as a human being. Like if my business wasn't succeeding, I thought I'm a failure. I was like, if I wasn't in the right business, then I was a jack of all trades. And if I was self-sabotaging, I was reading myself as incapable. And so I was heavily attached to my decisions, my business, and thinking that it was me. At some point when I realized that all of those pivots was actually wise, look, it was wise because I'm like giving myself a pat on the back right now. Like, no, but honestly, I was really hard on myself because all I could see around me were people around my age or a little bit older or a little bit younger. It was even more challenging when they were younger than me and they got their shit together. And I was like in my 30s, like, let me try this business. Oh, not that one. Let me try this other business. No, not that one. So, I was really hard on myself, but it's trying all the things that interest you. It should be known that that's part of the process. I kind of feel like, when you go through school and you go through high school, university, and you go through one thing, there's the expectation, right? Because they're like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's like you have one opportunity, you got like one answer. You know what I mean? That question in itself is almost setting you up to let you know that you're going to be one thing. And if you're not that, well, what's the other option? So and that's I guess that's what I had with me when I started my own thing. So at the beginning, it was all about studying what's available to me, what am I willing to do, and what seemed doable. I think at that beginning stage, what we're focusing on is what is doable, like what is my skill set, and we feel as though if it's not within our skill set, that we're not, we're not valued enough to go in that direction. But that's not necessarily the case because being in a learner's position already by default puts you in that situation. So, because I think you might have mentioned a few years, Koi, that you're interested in sort of like what else can you do from flying? Like, what if you don't want to fly anymore? What do you do from there? And it's really there's probably things that you love right now. There are probably things that you do right now, and the only thing that I can suggest for anybody who's considering, building something, um, creating something that matters to you, right? Something that, sometimes we don't even entertain the idea that that thing that we pursue has the power to um, to what is that, replace what we're currently making, like income wise from our work, because we think, oh, it's too easy, it's too fun, surely I can't make money from that. But we're living in a different age now. We're not, I think, like I was saying before, the way that the work culture is right now is still coming from the model of the industrial era, but now we're in the digital era. The digital era changes so much because what you see is different. You see different cultures, you see so much more. Back then, if you go to school, the only people that are your friends at that time are the people that you see at your school. Whereas now you've got social media, so you can see more people who are not just at your school. And it's the same thing in terms of industries and like things that we can do. So, yeah, and Koi, that's the challenging thing about the airline industry, is that it's so specialized and our skill set becomes so specialized that in some ways it's highly valued in that industry, but in any other industry has no value. There's actually a book about this that talks about, there is a book where they talk about certain professions which are so highly specialized, because they say, oh, it's good if you go in that direction because the more specialized you are, the higher the value, well, basically the more you get paid. So you go over here. But then I forgot which book this was, but then they were saying that the challenge is when you want to hop out of that and you want to pursue something else, you're not valued anywhere else, which then causes a bit of, well, not a bit, causes quite the dilemma, because then how do you get your foot in the door without being the beginning again? So, but Koi, I maybe this is a sign that digital space might be for you. The digital space is great. Look, honestly, without the digital space, I wouldn't have been able to speak with you, Koi, Phil, the hair growth girl, platonic sage, like even Karen, who was here before, Karen Foot. I don't know if she's still here, but none of us would be talking right now if this didn't exist. And I guess I just try to make the point that you can build anything that you want. think about a passion that you have, and just think, when you wanted to know more about that passion, where did you go for information, for support, for learning, for education? Even if it might be just cooking something, right? Maybe cooking is like your passion, or gardening. We go online. Like, have a think. If have you ever bought anything online before, whether it's a product or a service or a digital product? Have you ever hired anyone based on the internet, through the internet? Do you know anyone? Do you know anyone who's met someone from the internet and built a nice relationship, whether it's friendship, romantic relationship? Or I would guess that all of us in here, if we haven't purchased anything from the internet or hired someone from the internet, we know someone who has, because that's just the age. And then top it off, COVID lockdown. We're all buying stuff from the internet. So, hair growth girl, I saw this a lot when I was a recruiter. The experts were trapped in what they were doing in the last 20 years to keep their life standards. And I actually have a feeling that this is more common than we think. It's just that it's not commonly spoken about because we stay within our industry and our peers come from the same industry. So we're all within the same bubble of that industry. So this actually does make me think. I've been thinking about this for a while, you guys. Like, I wonder what is the key to, like, what is the thing that's missing, that people, we don't feel we're empowered enough to create a new direction. Because one thing that I've been thinking is, we're people, we're creatures, we have consciousness. We are in a life journey, like a life journey. This isn't just go to university and the end of your life, like, and create one career and that be the end of it. Like, there's so many things that are different now, as well. Like, for example, I work with people who work with people who have children, and then their children are going to leave the house, and then they're like, again, they're in that transition phase of life and they don't know where to go because their identity became being with their children. And then there's other things, like people who were in a profession and are expected. And there's also like this belief that retirement is all the rage, retirement, it's all the rage. That's all we're working towards, retirement. But then retirement happens for some people. And that's when mental health starts declining and identity starts declining, because all of those years of your life that you spent doing and being valued for, no longer, they're not there anymore. So I actually started looking at this and think, I have a feeling that we go through so many phases of life, and they say this in like the meditation practice and that kind of thing. We're always in transition. We're always changing, which is so interesting because the way that society operates is like not that. It's like not change. We're not, like, every time something changes or change is brought into like a corporate setting or something like that, there's definitely a lot of friction, because in our mind, we want comfort, we want familiar. That's actually what we want. And so when change comes around, it's almost like an attack. You know what I mean? Like, I feel attacked by this. Just kidding. But that's what it can feel like. It can feel like that is adversity. The adversity can feel quite overwhelming. It can make us feel so many things. But actually, if we already knew from the beginning that life is about a constant state of change, then I think we would be a lot easier on ourselves with being able to create new paths. Because I think ultimately, I think we mentioned this in one of the previous lives, ultimately people want to grow, and ultimately we want to change, but we just don't see it as change. We just see it as frustration, like, oh, I'm frustrated in here. I don't like how this is going. Or it always, in real life, it kind of appears like, I'm so over it. But that I'm so over it is just a sign of it's time to grow. It's time to move. So I think that frustration is a nice little sign that it's like we're about to go somewhere. So let's see. And honestly, I felt the same even in my experience. I'm only 27. So Koi, I was told experience is everything to land a job. Experience is far more important than education. Well, it's very true, because what's funny? In my time now, whenever I have to contract someone, the first thing that they send me is their resume, and then I actually skip through the education part and I go straight to work experience. Like I'll literally like skim through it and I'll say, "Do you have a portfolio?" And that's all I care about. And that's me. That's the creative industry. And so I see their portfolio first, and then I ask them, "Have you been? What sort of settings have you been in your work?" Just to see if they work with teams or if they, you know what I mean. So can turn around, adapting to different state of mind of creating something new. I was told by hiring manager that she would hire someone with experience with no education over someone like me who has education but no experience. Yep, we want to change, but in a way we want to be in the new destination, but we don't want to take the train. Yes, that's right. We always want to teleport ourselves to the next phase, like I want to start a business. I want to leave my job. Okay, great. And I just want to be in success. It's like this part, we're like, I don't really want to be in transit right now. So what can I do to get here? And then we spend our time trying to speed the train up. Like, hurry up, train, you're going so slow. Um, Koi, do you know what? I resonate with you so much because I used to be in the aviation industry. And remember, I was applying for everything and nobody wanted to hire me except for aviation. So I really took that as a cue. I was like, I'm so over this. Like, I don't, like, I just keep on getting overlooked. Like, I don't have the capacity to be adaptable. Because I'd even say, like, I'm adaptable. I am a quick learner. All these things that I thought were the right thing to say. Like, I can pick up well, I can execute fast, I'm dedicated, da da da. But maybe, like, honestly, it was because of that I started YouTube, because I was like, if they don't trust my resume, I may as well just show them my face. I may just well, no, it wasn't about my face. I was like, I may as well demonstrate the foundations of marketing. And marketing is about reach. It's about building brand, it's about all those things. And then anyway, I found myself in social media marketing after all. So yeah, I mean, it was the hardest thing that I went through, but it was also the best thing, because I feel like sometimes when I look back, I'm like, if I was hired, I'd probably be in the corporate world. I wouldn't be doing Facebook Lives right now. Do you know what I mean? Like, life would look so different. So just have a think. Like, is there something that you love? Have you considered? I will never say that starting a business is for everyone. And I know that people who have started their business and have had some success, they'll say it's the best thing I've ever done. And I think that anything that you do that you're interested in and find some success in, you're always going to say it's the best thing that I've ever done. But like Hair Growth Girl said, you've got to be on the train. You've got to be in the journey. It's not just the success that you're after. But I will say, like, maybe this is a sign that you could start something on, like, I'm not saying that the online world and online business is everything, but it's quite a place. It's quite a place. Mm, the There's less red tape, like less limitations, less guidelines. Okay, so Mr. and I don't know if I'm saying this correctly, Mr. Annabelle, is that right? I don't know. About retirement, when people stop living, they start dying. And yeah, because we get conditioned to living in our jobs, or our jobs being our life, you kind of feel like you stop living because you're not in your job anymore, when in fact this was the time that you were waiting for. I subscribed to your channel when you just left Emirates because I was trying to learn from you as well. I was stuck after leaving my first airline. Have you considered I'm gonna keep saying it. Have you considered the online, like the digital products? Or you know what? Have you done a list? This is what I did at the beginning. Not at the beginning. I did this when I was making a pivot in my career, and I didn't know what to keep and what to stop. I made a list. I might have mentioned this before, and I think you were in the live, Koi. I said, I made a list of things that I had, the things that I wanted, the things that I was good at, right? And then I made a code. It was like long term, short term, profitable, exciting. 4 letters: long term, short term, profitable, exciting. And I had to label each and every one of those things. And if it came up like it was short term, and profitable, but it was only short term, I put it to the side. So I started narrowing things down by just keeping what mattered and contributed to the long term. And then the thing, what I did keep is that if it was short term, profitable, and exciting, I kept it. But if it just said short term and profitable, I cut it out because there was a lot of things that I was doing back then for money. As a photographer, there was a lot of photo shoots that I was taking that was for money. Like it wasn't like maybe the kind of shoot that I wanted. And I thought, okay, well, this you have to sustain yourself, you know. So I chose differently. And I was like, all right. So the other things that I kept on board were like, if it's long term, if it connects to my long term goal, if it's profitable and exciting, it definitely stayed in the list. If it was short term, profitable and exciting, I kept it on the list. If it had long term and exciting, and it was missing profitable, I kept it on the list because exciting. It was it's part of my long-term goal and it's exciting. If that profitable part, if I can pull that from another area of this list, then it's worth keeping. Through that exercise, I'll tell you now, it took me 4 hours. It was a half day. Like I woke up and I felt inspired. There was a time here, guys. I went 1 week without my mobile phone. Like I was able to still access the internet through laptop, but I was like, no mobile phone through the day, no consumption of that social media, blah, blah. And then on the sixth, seventh day, I felt so inspired. I woke up and I was like, I know the answer to your challenge right now. Make a list. And then I did that exercise. I actually still have it here. I should show you because that changed my life. You know what? That was end of 29. Oh, that was January 1st, 2020 that I lost my phone. 7 days later, I did this plan and everything that I wrote freaking from that list has come true. Everything that I wrote on that list came true. All the things that I said I wouldn't do, I stopped doing, which is hallelujah because I'm preserve my energy. But two goals became really clear to me. And then funny thing, COVID happened, lockdown of the world happened. And it was so fortunate that I'd done this list because around the lockdown time, you know, I think a lot of us were kind of thinking, well, what am I going to do with my job? How do I pivot? And thanks to that list, I knew exactly where to put my energy. So, uh, I mean, feel free to hop. I was actually considering like if I should make that an exercise that I can just share with everyone because that exercise came when I'd already built something and I had to make a decision how I was going to go forward because that was the time that I was working it was like 3 years of doing many 16-hour days. And even though some of those days were like me on holiday, like I could take my, laptop lifestyle that um, has this attachment, like there's this impression that if you start laptop lifestyle right now, that it's going to look like that. You go to the hotels and you just got your laptop and you're just chilling because you're in a place of your own and overseas by a pool. And it's kind of like that, yeah. Except what they don't say is it's like that all the time. So you have the freedom of space, but you're actually working overtime everywhere you go. So the reality was at the time, even my holidays were work. All of my holidays were work. And Billy and I used to used to be, there's used to be tension around that because I would think, oh, I just hope he understands why I need to do this. But at the same time, I was eating into our couple time because I wanted to build that laptop lifestyle. And that's why I had to do that exercise because I'd already built enough that if I kept going in that direction, I think it would have been all right, but I would have been burnt out and forever working. So, yeah. Um, Hair growth girl. Guys, we have no choice. We have to have our own business. No one would hire us anyway. Honestly, maybe the community in here, we're all kind of the same. And it's kind of nice. Like once you realize that and you're like, well, maybe I am capable of having something. And that's all it takes. It just takes one pin light in the dark that says, maybe I'm capable. Maybe because we all are. We all are very capable, but it's just like that level of self-belief. You just start off with that and just be like, maybe I can. Some people say, "Oh, I'm not a techie person," or "I'm not good." That's me. I'm like non-techie. "Oh, I'm not good at sales. Where would I meet people? I don't know anyone." I think once you have the willingness in you and once you understand, once that desire to build something becomes so strong, it's got to be strong, because if it's not strong, what reason would you have to leave comfort? Like, comfort's so nice. That's like staying in a nice bed in winter when it's freezing outside and your bed's so cold. Like, why would you want to leave that? you know but then if you stay in your bed 24/7 and never get out and it's winter, like, even that beautiful comfort starts to be like, well, I can't go anywhere. And we start to see the things that aren't so perfect about that situation. So then you create a desire. And I'm not saying, look, sometimes we talk about desire, we don't want to live in the future of not having, right? But a desire, like a goal, create the goal. It doesn't have to be your the challenge that I had was I attached to myself too much. But now that I can see you can have a goal and not be so attached to it. You can use it as like your playground. You know what I mean? You're like, let me try to build something. Okay, because ultimately your disposable income, you're going to spend that on something anyway. Some things will last and some things will not last. I used to spend all my money. Well, no, this is a lie. I was going to say I used to spend all my money on fashion, but that's not true. I spent a lot of money on personal development. That sounds so much more nerdy, but I actually did. I spent so much more money on travel. When I started learning about the personal development world, that's where I spent it. And and there was part of me that questioned, because I could see a lot of people around me buying some really nice designer things and buying more things, and I felt like I was just in the same position. Like, I look the same, I sound the same, and looking good on layovers. The life of a flight attendant. You got the best fashion, you know what I mean? But yeah, I actually invested in a lot of self growth, and I think that was probably the smartest thing I ever did, because far out. Like, not having that growth, not being able to understand, not knowing what I know now, like the kind of person that I am. I didn't know this until I started meditating 3 months ago. I'm an expert now. No, just kidding. But I think I had some awareness, but I still had tension. I was still very into my goals and that kind of thing. And there's something that happened in meditation that made me realize, like, when you go into meditation, the whole thing is like you just observe your thoughts. And I'd be in meditation and I'd observe my thoughts. And the more I could see and observe my thoughts and let them dissipate, even halfway through the thought, I'd be like, and then I want to do this with that client. And I was like, there's a thought. I'd be like, let it float away. I was like, because I could start to realize, like, even if you think about something, it doesn't mean much unless you do something about it. So, and then it kind of started to train me about how my body feels. And I found that sometimes I might be washing the dishes and I can see now, I'm like, oh, wow, my shoulders were real tense. So I'm just washing the dishes. And so in that moment, I'd like relax. And then I always say this every single live: how you do one thing is how you do everything. I must have had a lot of tension attached to where I want to go in life, hence anxiety. Anxiety is about thoughts, about worry about the future. Sheila May Esmail, medication helps me clear my mind. Yes, looking good on layovers. Interesting explanation. Well, I don't have a lot to say about because I haven't had a lot of experience with meditate. Do you mean meditation? Helps me clear my mind and give a clear vision. Yeah. I feel like once you can see what's going on in your mind. Yeah, I think so too. I think it's meditation. Yeah. It just, you can observe your thoughts and let it go. But and so I started to realize that, and I see it more and more and more. And the reason I share it is because not to be like, yeah, I'm so wrong, and all of this, and I was so bad, and da 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 da. But it's more so the fact that I just wanted to paint the picture that maybe there's some things happening we hold our tension, we hold our stress, we hold our frustrations in our body, and we don't see it, and we don't even know about it. And until you can notice your thoughts, which are, in your mind, um, it starts to trickle into other parts where you start to go, oh, I can start noticing that a little bit more. So, yeah, it's quite a powerful experience. So I'm taking that into the business now, as well as the, 80, 20% of my actions go to 80% of my results. And again, like I said a couple of weeks ago, I'll report and let you know how that goes. Let you know. Hey guys, my mum's arriving tomorrow night. Actually, she's coming out of quarantine. I'll put her on. I'll put her on YouTube live. Oh, it's gonna be good. I haven't seen her in a long time. But anyway, we've gone over time, and I've taken up an extra 10 minutes, almost 11 minutes here of your time. But I really enjoy it, you guys. I can see here someone says interesting explanation. Oh, I wish I knew how to read your name. Um, it's in characters that I don't know how to read. Um, Mama Fernandez. Well, I'm getting her on the fenugreek tea. I might try some actually. I've got some fenugreek seeds here. So thank you guys again for your time. I really appreciate it. As you know, Friday, this time of the day is one of my favorite times of the week. So Koi, I'll let you know if I turn that exercise into something that I can just put here and try it. It was powerful for me, so maybe it might help you with where you want to go. I mean, the benefit is you're still in you're still in your job, which is great. So that means that you'll have the opportunity to have a play around, explore, have a look at your interests, and just see. A lot of the time, our interests can be profitable, and I'm not, not from a greedy perspective, but just from a place where you create options for yourself, some freedom for yourself, and really embark on a really great, fun journey. So thank you. Can I just say, I've been using this one product and I'm actually testing it because it's all natural, but it's scientific. They say on their stuff is that they're scientifically proven. So they test it. And I'm actually speaking with their company on the 18th of June because they want to know my experience. And I swear it's just, me too, I notice it. It's called antipodes, and it's like probiotic something something. Sheila, I'm glad you're not silent anymore because I really enjoy I really enjoy chatting with everyone that I see. Sometimes when don't see any chat, I don't know if I'm on the right track or if what I'm saying is making sense. So I really appreciate it. But Sheila May, I can send you a photo of this product because I've been using it for about 2 weeks now, and I'm like, where's my paws? They're gone. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Send me. I'll hang on. I'll put this in the chat. I can send it to you on Instagram, so I can take a photo of the product. Phil, you are keeping this live stream alive. Sometimes I'm like, Phil. Phil always says hello. Shall I go get it? Shall I go get it now? Hang on, wait. Okay, stay here 1 second. Hang on, I'll be back. It's this. It's from New Zealand. It's called Antipodes Culture Probiotic Night Recovery Water Cream. Oh my gosh, and it smells so nice. But it's all natural, like literally. And I'm like, how is it so effective? Because I used to just think that if it doesn't have any chemicals in it, it's not really going to do much, but it's also got hyaluronic acid. Anyway, antipodes, they have great stuff. All right, guys. Well, anti-pores, I know. Oh, hair growth girl, you would like this range because it's all natural. It smells great. So I'll see you guys next week. Anyone want to talk about anything in particular? I don't know. I always kind of like a confession. I come up with the topics based on things that happen through the week and conversations that I've had. So let's see what comes up this week. And I'll see you guys next Friday, 2 p.m. Brisbane time. If anyone does have any requests, let me know. And then restaurants. Should we talk about restaurants? Could talk about that. I'll actually make a post in the community section because some people were like saying, can you please give me some notice? I'm like, I used to think that no one was going to be here, so I never promoted it. So I'm like, I'll just show up by myself. Anyway. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Kimberly Hills, love you. Love you too. Love you guys. I love you guys. Sending you love everywhere in the world that you are from. And I'll see you guys next Friday. Ciao, ciao.